I was sure someone was chasing me. This happened during my very first month of college. I was 18 years old and had just moved to Chicago from a small town in Iowa. If you've ever moved from a small town to a big city, you'll probably understand exactly how I felt. Back home, I could walk around late in the evening without worrying about anything. Everybody knew everybody. The biggest danger was probably the neighbor's dog that occasionally jumped over the fence. But Chicago felt like a completely different world. Tall buildings, crowds of strangers, constant noise, and most of all, endless stories about crime that students loved to tell. A few days before all this happened, the university had even sent out a safety alert about a suspicious man who had reportedly been seen near one of the student dorms. Nobody had been robbed. Nobody had been kidnapped. But that single email was enough to send my imagination into overdrive, especially because, at the time, I was completely obsessed with true crime podcasts. Every evening, I listened to stories about kidnappings, serial killers, and mysterious disappearances. Back then, I thought it was just entertainment. Now I realize it was a terrible idea. After weeks of listening to those stories, you start seeing danger in every stranger you pass. That afternoon, my classes ended earlier than usual. I went back to my dorm, rested for a while, and decided to visit my best friend, Sarah. She lived in an old apartment building about 10 minutes from campus. We planned to drink tea and watch a movie together. On my way there, I stopped at a convenience store and bought a package of cookies. Nothing unusual, just a normal college evening. At least, that's what I thought. When I arrived at Sarah's building, there was almost nobody around. I pulled open the front door, and at that exact moment, a man appeared behind me. I automatically turned around. The first thing I noticed was how tall he was. He was huge, at least 6'6", broad shoulders, a thick beard, a black jacket, and a very serious expression. He noticed me looking at him and calmly said, "After you." His voice sounded perfectly friendly, but for some reason, that didn't make me feel any better. "Thanks," I muttered. Then I stepped inside. The man came in behind me. I walked toward the elevator. So did he. That was when I started feeling uncomfortable. I pressed the elevator button. Nothing happened. I pressed it again. Still nothing. Only then did I notice a sheet of paper taped to the wall. Out of order, I sighed. Sarah lived on the 9th floor. The 9th floor, without an elevator. Wonderful. The man looked at the sign and silently headed toward the stairwell. A few seconds later, I followed. The first 2 floors were easy. When I reached the 3rd floor, I glanced down through the stairwell and saw him. He was still climbing. Right behind me. Nothing strange about that. Just a guy going home. But somehow, I felt uneasy. On the 4th floor, I picked up my pace. A few seconds later, I heard his footsteps speed up too. I frowned. Coincidence. It had to be a coincidence. On the 5th floor, I walked even faster. And once again, his footsteps became faster too. That was when my imagination fully took over. Every crime story I'd listened to over the past few weeks came rushing back into my mind. Don't panic, I told myself. It's just an apartment building. But my heart kept beating faster. Then something happened on the 6th floor that completely threw me off balance. A package of cookies slipped out of my bag. I didn't even notice, but he did. I heard his voice from below. "Hey, wait!" I turned around. He was holding my cookies. But by then, my brain wasn't processing reality anymore. I saw only one thing. A huge man moving quickly toward me while shouting something. A wave of panic shot through my body. I spun around and started running up the stairs. Behind me, I heard him call out again. "Wait! You dropped!" I never heard the rest. I was already running. Actually running. 7th floor, 8th floor. My lungs were burning. My legs felt weak, but the footsteps behind me never disappeared. It sounded like he was getting closer. I was convinced that if I stopped for even a second, something terrible would happen. I climbed the final steps to the 9th floor on pure adrenaline. Bursting into the hallway, I ran straight to Sarah's apartment and started hammering the doorbell. Once, twice, 3 times, 4. "Sarah, open the door," I was almost shouting. And that's when I heard those familiar footsteps behind me. Slowly, I turned around, and there he was, standing only a few feet away from me, still holding my package of cookies. I stared at him. He stared back at me. In that moment, it felt as if the entire world had frozen. My heart was pounding so hard that I could hear it ringing in my ears. I wanted to say something, to scream, to take even a single step backward, but I couldn't. My legs felt completely frozen. The man opened his mouth as if he was about to say something. At that exact moment, Sarah's apartment door began to open, but by then, I could barely see anything. The hallway started spinning around me. The ringing in my ears grew louder. My vision became blurry. I felt the floor slipping away beneath my feet. The last thing I remember seeing was the surprised look on the bearded man's face, and Sarah's voice shouting, "Oh my God, what is happening?" Then everything went dark. To be continued. Thank you for watching this story all the way to the end. At that moment, Emily was absolutely convinced that the man behind her was dangerous. Everything happened so quickly that she never stopped to consider any other explanation. But the most surprising part of this story began the moment she turned around. And what happened next was something she never expected. Now I'm curious to hear your opinion. What would you have done if you were in her position? Would you have reacted the same way? Would you have run up all 9 floors? Or would you have stayed calm and tried to figure out what was really happening? Let me know in the comments below. Do you think Emily was right to trust her instincts? Or did fear and imagination get the better of her? If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me bring you more real-life stories like this one. And if you'd like to find out what happened after Emily turned around, make sure you don't miss part 2. Trust me, the truth was far more unexpected than anyone could have imagined. Thanks again for watching. Stay safe, trust your instincts, but remember, sometimes our imagination can